All right, summer sound sale is here. So let's just look at some of the products and I will give you an honest opinion of who I think those products are for, help you make that decision on what to buy, what to upgrade to, or what to get for the first time. So let's dig right in. I've got an affiliate link in the description. And if you want to pick something up, that's a great way to help me out. But as I always say on my channel, I just want to make sure that you're buying the right stuff. This isn't how I make my living. So these kinds of things are helpful. They help me keep the channel going, but this is not the reason I am on YouTube. So let's just get right into it, help you figure out what's right for you and what to spend your money on or what not to spend your money on. So we've got hardware, we've got complete editions, 50% off, which is outstanding. I love the complete editions. I've been using them for way before I started doing YouTube videos, of course. You can go and get 50% off individual instruments and effects. Ooh, they've even got orchestral tools in here. That's kind of fun. I do have a video on orchestral tools stuff, so I'll put a link to that in the description. I'm going to put a whole bunch of links in the description. I don't have anything on vocal colors, but maybe I'll put a link to Bo Tyler's video because he just did one on vocal colors. Really great. So you can go check that one out as well. So let's go over to the hardware bundles and just talk about hardware for a second. Because as you see, I've got a lot of Native Instruments hardware in my studio and they have provided that, so that's why I always put paid promotion at the beginning of my Native Instruments videos because they don't send me money and they don't, give me any conditions whatsoever. I don't even have to say wonderful things about their stuff. So first off, we got Maschine Plus and Maschine Micro. So for Maschine, a Komplete 14 standard, $1,000 Canadian, which is like $12 American. So sorry, I pull that joke all the time. It's not getting old, I know. But anyways, you can see that if you are looking at getting a Maschine and Komplete, now is a really good time to do that. And we'll just have a quick look at some of the different versions of Komplete, but I have another video where I talk about Komplete 14 and compare everything. So I'll point you to that video specifically where I go and break down, do I think it's worth it to go for all the way up to Komplete 14 Ultimate or Collector's Edition? Because for some people, no, it's not. If you don't need all those expansions, then don't get the Collector's Edition, right? I was a Collector's Edition back when I was a mere mortal and had to pay for these things. And so for me, it was a no-brainer to go for the Collector's Edition because I love the expansions. I still have yet to find a single sample seller who impresses me as much as the expansions do. And that's why I have so many videos on them. Do I think there's a new Maschine coming out sometime soon? Are you going to get bit if you, buy a Maschine right now and then next week they release a new one? I don't have any insider info on new Maschines. I don't think they're coming out with anything anytime soon. So Maschine Micro with versions of Komplete as well. I've never used a Maschine Micro. To me, the whole point of Maschine is the displays, the integration, and just the muscle memory that happens when you work with Maschine. And I've never experienced anything like it. And when I got into Maschine, I was more of a traditional kind of film composer type. I fell in love with it deeply, and I still think it is the best way to do the beat making sampling thing. Right now for me, I would recommend mostly the Maschine still, because Maschine Plus is fantastic, but it really is meant for those people who just want to go make beats at the park or down at the beach. I just don't find myself doing that. I'm always near a computer. If you have a computer, you have a way more powerful Maschine. It's just as simple as that. So that's kind of my 2 bits on the Maschine Plus. And don't get me wrong, it can do a ton. And playing around with something like the SP404 Mark II made me realize how powerful the Maschine Plus actually is. So despite the lack of battery, the lack of virtual instruments on it, and the processing power and the RAM and all that, it really is an incredibly powerful device that you can do a ton on. There's no question about that. And then as far as the Komplete Control S-Series keyboards, what are they offering these for right now? $958 for a 49. This is a 61 right here. So we're looking at $1,000 for Komplete 14 standard and an S-Series keyboard. If we look at Komplete 14, it's regularly $779 Canadian. They're offering that with the S61 for a few $100s more. That's a really good deal. So even if they did come out with something new soon, I think you could rest assured that you got yourself a smoking deal. And these keyboards are fantastic. Like, talk about integration, right? There are no pads on this keyboard and no faders, which doesn't bother me at all. I love these endless encoders. And to me, that is the most useful feature on these keyboards. They've got stuff like, play and start and record and that for your DAW. I never find myself using that. I'm just going to use the keyboard all the time, my actual keyboard. But I'm doing some really major composition work, which I'll get to talk about in the next few months, but can't talk about right now. But I am using Komplete Control exclusively for every single virtual instrument that I'm working with. So working with tons of orchestra stuff, and the orchestra having the key switches on the lights, totally worth the price of admission. So that's my take on these keyboards. And the key bed itself feels fantastic. Ooh, they do have the M32 keyboards on sale as well. And they're very basic. They've got the knobs, the configurable knobs. So if you're working with Komplete Control, it'll be pretty simple for you to see what those knobs are assigned to. They've got a tiny little display. And then let's just look at Komplete Audio 6 really quickly. You've got 4 analog ins, had 2 headphone outs, which is amazing. I can't tell you how important it is to have 2 headphone outs if you're ever producing anybody, because especially if you're recording things like drums or whatever, it's like the drummer's going to want it cranked and you're not going to want it cranked, stuff like that. Having 2 headphones out, really useful, even more useful than having more than 2 outputs. And this one only has 2 outputs, right? So I think that's an excellent trade-off. It is nice having more than 2 outputs, but you can live without it. And then 4 analog inputs, which is fantastic. So you've got 2 on the front for your microphones or your electric guitar or whatever, plug them straight in. And then you've got 2 on the back, which I would always have hooked up to a synthesizer. So I always have a synthesizer of some sort hooked up to the back, and I can just swap that out. I've also got a little tiny mixing board. So if you only had that audio interface, get yourself a little mixing board, maybe a 6-channel mixing board or something like that. And you plug a whole bunch of synthesizers into that, plug the output into your 2 extra outputs on the back of your audio interface. These are the things you never really think of when you're picking up an audio interface. You're thinking, I'm just going to record 1 microphone at a time. Well, do you have any external synthesizers? Because you'll want to get some inputs for that as well. Don't need it. Definitely. You could go with 2 inputs and that's it. But having the extra ones is nice. You have it set up all the time, ready to go. Oh, and I do love this nice big knob on the top. That is a really nice touch. And then the last thing I gotta say is having LED meters on an audio interface, to me, is essential. It's so important. So for me in the work I do when you're setting levels, and then also when you're watching the output. And what I do a lot when I'm working with certain projects is I just have a benchmark. One of those notches on the LED is where the vocals should always be hitting at. And so if I'm doing day after day of editing dialogue for something and I'm outputting all these files, I know that the dialogue is at least in the ballpark. And then I can go to my meters and really double check. But those are just kind of my 2 bits on audio interfaces. Enough about bits. Jeez. Next thing to talk about is the software, obviously. And like I say, I've got a video on Komplete 14. I'll put that in the description. So make sure you go check that because I go over the different versions. So go to the compare on the website. Really important for you to do that so you can see what the differences are. Select on the left, which is like the super scaled down version. You've got a few things in there, but as we go up, you're getting way more synthesizers, a few things that are left out, some of the smaller versions, instruments that I have played around with a little bit, but really aren't a part of my workflow. You've got a bunch of Play Series instruments, all of the different versions. Alicia's keys and piano colors, also not game changers in my opinion. They're great pianos and they sound great. You've got more drums in the top 2 versions. You do have the 60s drummer and the studio drummer. I love studio drummer. I use that one a lot. And then the Abbey Road 60s drummer is great for that kind of chubbier drum kit kind of sound. So do you need all of these ones? Maybe not. The bass ones, these are old basses now. They've got prime bass here in Komplete 14 standard, which is amazing. Prime bass is fantastic. I've got a video on it. Make sure you go check that one out. You get a lot more guitars in the top 2 versions, virtual guitars. One thing that does set the upper ones apart is that you've got Session Horns Pro and Session Strings Pro 2. Those ones are fantastic. Really nice, simple libraries. Anytime I need just some cellos for something, I'll probably pull up Session Strings Pro 2. And same thing with horns. I use the Session Horns Pro all the time when I'm arranging stuff for jazz band because I do that quite a bit throughout the year. We've got some bigger percussion stuff in the top 2. Damage is great. Emotive strings, those ones I don't use a ton. Any of these bottom ones right here, I've got a couple videos on like Sequus and Straylight, but not my go-to libraries, So next we've got some of the Symphony Essentials stuff, and the Symphony Essentials are only in Komplete 14 Ultimate. give those ones a pass. And then the Symphony series, the big ones are a lot nicer, but still not fantastic. And they're not made by the same company, so they don't sound exactly the same. So might be a pass for you. If you're thinking orchestral and that's what's pushing you up over the edge to Komplete 14 Collector's Edition, save your money and go somewhere else. They've got those other orchestral libraries on sale right now as well. So these 4-string quartet instruments are amazing. They're really good. But you need a super powerful computer with a lot of RAM to work with them. And I mean like at least, 16 gigs of RAM, probably more like 24 or 32, if you want to work with those ones, because they are beasts. Just one cello or one viola, unless you start tweaking your contact settings, is going to take over a gig of space. So be aware of that. And on older computers, I'm talking like a 2016 iMac or something like that, you're talking about a really long waiting time. Trust me, I've got a lot of experience with those ones. So be aware of that as well. Next, we've got some effects. Every DAW comes with so many effects now. Do we really need, other compressors and stuff? Lots of stuff in there anyways. I love the Imitation LA2A. Actually, I use that one a lot. So Raum is also a great reverb, comes with everything. I use that a ton, and it was free at one point. And then the last thing is the expansions, and I've got a whole playlist I'll include on the expansions. Like I said, I use a ton of these expansions, and whenever I get into new software, like say like Ableton Live or something like that, I'm always making my expansions available to Ableton Live. I even got Logic Pro on the iPad, and I'm working on a video for that. Same thing, I'm going to take all my expansions and just dump them into as samples so I can import them into Logic Pro on the iPad. Cool stuff. Look for a video on that coming up in the future. And go check all the videos in my description, because I've got videos on so many of these different products, and I can answer any questions that you want to throw at me in the comments section, stuff that you're thinking about getting, and just help you make the right decision. Because some of you don't need complete control. You just need a few of those special certain instruments, and you're wondering if it's worth it to get them. So hit me up in the comments and I'll try and help you out. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you want to see videos on in the next month. If you're getting something new and you're frustrated with it, and I don't have something already, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.